Outlaws kidnap the daughter of a humble mechanic, unaware that her father was once an elite assassin, a man willing to destroy an entire criminal network to bring her home. Paul lives a quiet life, working as a car mechanic. One evening, he calls his daughter Beth, who studies in another city. She sounds tired and says she's just exhausted from classes. Paul jokes with her, asking about her final, but he can tell something's wrong. Suddenly, a man's harsh voice cuts in. "What are you doing?" Startled, Beth quickly ends the call, saying she needs to study. Before hanging up, they agree to meet next weekend. "Can't wait for next weekend." "Me too," she says softly. The next morning, Paul returns to the garage. Among his mail, he finds a letter from Beth's university. Curious, he opens it, and his expression changes. He immediately tries to call her again, but this time, a stranger answers the video call. The moment the man realizes he's speaking to Beth's father, he abruptly hangs up, saying it's not his phone. Paul's anxiety grows. He calls again and again, leaving desperate voice messages, but Beth never replied. Worried sick, Paul calls her landlord, who tells him no one's seen Beth for days. "Doesn't look like anybody's been there for a while," the man says. Fear tightening his chest, Paul drives straight to the city where she studies. At her apartment, he knocks repeatedly. No answer. Out of desperation, he breaks the lock and steps inside. The room is nearly empty. As he searches, he finds one clue: a photo of Beth with a friend, smiling in front of a bar. Paul wastes no time. He drives to the bar, photo in hand, showing it to people outside, but no one recognizes her. Inside, he asks the bartender, who refuses to talk unless he orders something. He pays, slides the picture across the counter, and asks again. After glancing at it, she shakes her head and hands it back. Feeling lost, Paul sits down, sipping water, wondering where to start. Then, suddenly, he spots a familiar face, the same young woman beside Beth in the photo. He approaches her carefully. Her name is Angela, Beth's old friend. When Paul asks about Beth, Angela is defensive and unhelpful. She accuses him of going through Beth's things, not realizing his panic. Before he can explain, she decides to leave. When Paul grabs her arm to stop her, her friends jump in, thinking he's harassing her. Security throws them all out. Outside, Paul quickly tells her he's only looking for his missing daughter. Angela hesitates, then agrees to talk. 5 minutes. That's it. They sit at a diner nearby. Over food, Angela admits she and Beth drifted apart. Beth stopped going to class, and the last she heard, Beth moved to New Orleans with her boyfriend Eddie, a guy involved in drugs. "She doesn't go to school anymore. She's doing stuff I'm not into," Angela says. Shocked but composed, Paul offers her $500 to help him find Eddie. The offer tempts her. She agrees to go with him and point out where Eddie lived. During their road trip, Angela asks why Paul doesn't just call the police. He replies quietly, "Because they wouldn't do anything for 48 hours. They'd just think she ran away." Angela sighs, telling him to let Beth live her own life. Paul stays silent. Hours later, they stop at a gas station. Angela teases him for being too strict, saying Beth probably left because of it. Paul doesn't respond. He simply signals for her to get back in the car. Eventually, they reach New Orleans. Angela leads him to a nightclub where she first met Eddie with Beth. Before entering, Paul tells her to keep some distance so they don't attract attention. "You see, Eddie, just let me know somehow," he says. Inside, Angela quickly loses focus. She sneaks into the bathroom, takes drugs, and returns unsteady. She starts dancing while Paul watches silently from the corner, scanning the crowd. When she flirts with him and tries to drag him to the dance floor, he refuses, focused only on finding his daughter. Outside the club, Angela spots some of Eddie's friends. Paul approaches them, asking where Eddie is. Instead of answering, they attack him. After taking several hits, Paul retaliates with deadly precision, knocking them out one by one. Before leaving, he grabs one of their phones, hoping it might lead him to Eddie. Back in the car, Paul instructs Angela to message Eddie using the stolen phone. She's shaken by his sudden violence and demands to know who he really is. Paul doesn't answer. She begs him to take her home, but he refuses, saying they'll rest at a motel first. At the motel, Angela keeps asking questions: how he fought like that, why he won't call the cops. what he's hiding. Paul stays silent. Later that night, she catches him shirtless before the mirror, covered in tattoos and scars, proof of a dark past. Then, Eddie finally replies to the message, agreeing to meet that night at a bar called Excite. Paul and Angela drive there. She goes in first, spots Eddie and points him out. Paul pays her the money and tells her to go home. Inside, a man named Stuart recognizes Paul immediately. As Paul confronts Eddie, demanding to know where Beth is, Eddie mocks her, infuriating Paul, until Stuart steps in, sending the women away and apologizing for Eddie's behavior. Stuart asks Paul to spare Eddie's life, reminding him of their past encounter 20 years ago. He reveals that back then, Paul killed 7 men in one night, exposing his true identity as a legendary assassin once known for eliminating crime boss. "Every time we shot, you moved like air," Stuart says. Then he asks the question that's haunted him for years. Why did Paul spare his life that night? Paul doesn't answer. Eddie, realizing who stands before him, turns pale with fear. Under pressure, he confesses that he doesn't know where Beth is. He admits they dated briefly, but she got involved with a dealer named Tony, known on the streets as the pharmacy. Paul demands Tony's location, and Stuart gives it to him. Before leaving, Paul looks back and says coldly, "The only reason you're alive, Stuart, is because I ran out of bullets." Outside, Angela waits anxiously. When Paul tells her they're heading after Tony, she insists on coming along. She can't just abandon Beth. Reluctantly, he agrees but warns her, "I'm driving." As they pull away, 2 men begin tailing them. They work for Omar, a powerful crime lord who once ruled the city's underworld. At that moment, Omar interrogates a man who betrayed him, listing every offense before ordering his lieutenant, Mark, to execute him. When Omar's men report spotting Paul, fury fills his eyes. He recognizes the name instantly. For 20 years, he's dreamed of revenge. Mark advises him to let it go, but Omar refuses. "Find him," he orders. "Bring him to me alive." Not long after, Paul and Angela are ambushed on a quiet road. Bullets shatter the windows, but Paul reacts fast, swerving, ramming one car off the road, then taking down the attackers with ruthless precision. He interrogates one of the wounded men, who confesses the hit came directly from Omar. Paul ends it quickly and leaves the scene. Meanwhile, Mark reports back to Omar, confirming that Paul survived and is searching for his daughter. Omar, believing Paul is responsible for his wife and child's deaths years ago, swears to destroy him. Mark, uneasy about facing a man like Paul, warns him again, but Omar doesn't care. As they continue driving, Angela finally asks the question that's been burning inside her. "Who are you, really?" Paul stays quiet at first, but then he admits, "I'm not a mechanic. I was recruited to hunt people like Omar." He explains that years ago, he planted a bomb meant for Omar's car, but that morning, Omar's wife took the car to drive their child to school. Paul tried to stop them, but the explosion went off, killing them both. Since then, Paul has lived with unbearable guilt, vowing never to kill again. "I left that life behind," he says, "until they took my daughter." They stop at a small hotel run by Sam, an old friend. Sam immediately recognizes him. Paul explains everything and asks Sam to keep Angela safe while he goes after Tony. Though reluctant, Sam agrees. When Paul leaves, Sam warns Angela to stay out of it, revealing Paul's old nickname, the Prince. He tells her Paul was once the most feared man in the underworld. Paul then visits a black market weapons shop once owned by an old ally. The man's son, Frank, now runs it. After some hesitation, Frank returns Paul's hidden weapons, the ones he left behind years ago. "How many do you need?" Frank asks. "How many you got?" Paul replies. Armed once more, he heads straight to Tony's place. Pretending to bring valuable information, Paul gains entry. The guards search him and take his weapons before leading him inside. Tony greets him with a smirk, but the smile fades when Paul demands to see Beth. Tony leads him to a back room, and there she is, unconscious from an overdose. It was all a setup. Tony planned to hand Paul over to Omar, but Paul reacts instantly, turning the trap into chaos. He kills Tony and his men, grabs Beth, and escapes before Omar's people arrive. When Mark reaches Tony's hideout, he finds only bodies and smoke. Furious, Omar orders an all-out hunt for Paul. Meanwhile, Paul returns to Sam's hotel, wounded but alive. Sam treats his injuries while Angela stays by Beth's side. For the first time in days, Beth wakes up, weak and filled with shame. She apologizes through tears, but Paul takes her hand gently. "Nothing's changed," he says, "not with me." They prepare to leave, but before they can, Omar's men surround the hotel. Gunfire erupts. Paul and Sam fight back fiercely. Angela is captured in the chaos, but she escapes and brings a car around. Paul grabs Beth and makes a run for it, helping Sam hold off the last attackers before driving away with Angela and Beth. On the road, Paul stops briefly at Frank's shop to restock weapons. He knows what must come next, the final confrontation. Meanwhile, Beth is taken by Omar's men who captured her again during the shootout. When Omar sees her, he tells her that her father destroyed his life and took everything from him. Beth, still weak, listens silently. Moments later, Paul arrives at Omar's base, fully armed, eyes burning with purpose. He storms the compound alone, eliminating guards one by one until he reaches the main hall. Inside, Omar holds Beth at gunpoint. Paul pleads, "She's innocent, Omar. Let her go." But Omar refuses. Suddenly, Mark attacks, and the two men engage in a brutal, close fight. Despite his wounds, Paul overpowers and kills Mark. Finally, it's just Paul and Omar. Both raise their guns, but Paul is faster. One final shot echoes through the room, and Omar falls dead. Beth rushes to her father, helping him to his feet. Outside, Angela waits by the car. Paul, bleeding but alive, climbs in beside them. The three drive away into the dawn, a broken family reunited, leaving behind a world of blood and ghosts. End the movie? If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our other recaps and subscribe for more content. And leave comment below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.